Up is Craig Malin to give his presentation in regards to the search. Craig, it's all yours.
Yeah, great. If you can hear me and I can start my show, here it goes. Is it working? Can everyone see
I
that?
can hear you.
We can hear you, we can see you, but that's all we can see.
Hold on.
I guess
Hold
we're
on.
running it.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's fine. If you're running it, I'll just say next slide, please. How about that?
But you can do it if you want, we just can't. If you're gonna run it, that's fine, we just can't see it right now.
Okay, hold on. Gotta find it.
There's a present button at the bottom.
Yeah. There it is. Screen. How about that? Is that better?
No.
We don't see it, we just see you.
We don't see the presentation.
No. Hold on.
Google Meets. Every time I use Google Meets, I have problems.
Do you guys do you collect pins?
Yeah.
Can you
Hold on.
send it to
Go ahead.
Hold on. We're gonna get there. Share your entire screen. Here.
I'll get more if you like.
Well, I had presented this or emailed my presentation over.
You can just run it here. Tim, can you run it? We'll run it from the back here.
That'll be great. Okay. So we can skip over to the first slide. Just says that what day it is, and get to the next slide, please, if that's possible. So in a nutshell, I've been doing this for a while, a little over 30 years. Even before I started, though, I started with a thesis on how to hire the best city manager in my first master's degree. I assembled up a couple other master's degrees, including one in human resources. I've been the human resources principal professional for a county in 3 cities. I've hired more than 250 city and county employees. I have a fairly unique collection of qualifications and accolades in the city management profession, and it's been great fun every day. The next slide would be fantastic. The next slide is one of the best things of this job is to get to help people become city manager. This is Tanisha Briley, who was an assistant in Davenport. Now she's the city manager of Gaithersburg, Maryland. I've helped dozens of people become city managers. I've delivered presentations at state and national conferences on how to be and how to become a city manager. So let's get to the next slide. That tells us all how we got here. I was minding my own business out in Seaside, California, being the city manager out there. And I got an email from Randy and a call from the mayor asking if I might lend some assistance to this process. And I said, of course, I love Rock Island. I'd be happy to help. So I sent a letter, and then another call from the mayor who said, can you turn the letter into an actual response to the proposal? And again, I said, of course, I love Rock Island. I'd be happy to help. So I did that. The next slide. It turns out that no good deed goes unpunished. I watched the October 1st meeting and watched the whole meeting, not just the end. And I see that there's some nice people going to talk to you after me. And I just want to say, and be on the record, they're a good firm and they'll do good work. Next slide, please. The process that they use and the process that I use are a little bit different. I use pretty much all their steps. I do the position profile, advertisement, review resumes, do reference checks, assist in interviews, but I add a few steps to it. On the next slide, please. So I do 3 things. To make sure after the initial round of resume reviews, everyone who's a semi-finalist gets to the opportunity to describe or to show how they can write. City managers need to be able to write, and it's a good practice to get rid of the applicants who can't before they get in front of you. The next thing I do is make sure that the stakeholders pick the number of semifinalists, and there's usually between 5 and 9 for a screening interview. And at the conclusion of the screening interviews, we normally get down to somewhere between 2 to 4 finalists. And those finalists have to deliver a public presentation. It's usually the next day, and all the people that they might work with get to show up, and they get 20 to 30 minutes to demonstrate their prowess, and again, the city council gets feedback on how they did. The third thing I do that's different, and I really started doing this when I got to Seaside because they made me do this. They made me take this whiz-bang test. The next slide would be great. It's called the Work Dynamics Leadership Assessment Test, and that test is the single best test of a person's leadership tendencies, and you'll get the most information about a candidate and how they will react. So it's about $1,500, but it's really the best and most reliable piece of information that you'll have. Okay, so the next slide, please. Now, some people think that these 3 extra steps are overkill, but they're not. You need to know, I need to know as a city manager, you need to know as a city council how people react to stress and will they give up when things get difficult. Next slide, please. I know all about cities that give up when things get difficult because I arrived in one in 2001. I arrived in a city right across the river. Next slide. That still had mud in our ballpark and didn't have any construction activity downtown and had boarded up windows in City Hall. Next slide, please. Don't look like that no more. We had a very creative process in hiring and assembling a team, and when you resource those people well and have creative individuals, they turn what was failure into success. The next slide would be great. The next slide is sort of what a conventional firm will deliver. A conventional firm will start with more applicants and at one end and have one applicant at the other and do all the normal stuff. They'll do a position profile, they'll advertise, they'll review resumes, they'll do reference checks, they'll do interviews. And at the end, somebody had nice hiking shoes or somebody said something that connected at an interview and that person gets hired. I'm here to tell you that's not good enough. So the next slide. My process at the end is not a path, it's an obstacle course. Next slide, please. An obstacle course allows everyone to see how people react to stress. One more slide. Thank you. How people react to stress. And it's important, when I say we, this isn't me showing how people react to stress. It's the stakeholders in Rock Island that can see how people react to stress. So that's my process and how it's a little bit different. Next slide, please. The gist of it is this. My process lends to more information at lower cost. Next slide. And that's not like an opinion, that's an actual fact. The next slide. And in fact, the cost is so low that I suggested that we help out a student in Rock Island and help out a student in Arndt because that's why I'm in this line of work, folks. I'm here to help people. And then I took a look at the typical guarantee that the other nice folks who come after me provide, and I'd be happy to provide that because you're going to get better information with my process. Next slide. So again, I watched the October 1st discussion, and there's pros and cons with both approaches. I'm the one with more information at lower cost. They're the ones who are more than a little bit bigger than me and have done this more at the city manager level. But rather than divide the council, here's my suggestion. Next slide, please. I really think you need to think about how you get the best parts of all the approaches that were submitted. So that's the handy Venn diagram on the next slide. So I think you should really discuss that at some point after you talk with me and talk with the other folks. The next slide. I want to talk a little bit more about those 14 years on the other slide. Let's skip through this one and go right to the next one, which is this. My process has transformational and award-winning results. They absolutely provide you more information at lower cost. And you get to the point where good things happen, where the bad stuff stops happening less, or happens less, and the good stuff happens more. So crime goes down, tax rate from investment went down, population goes up, investment goes up, diversity goes up. All those things happen. Again, those are facts that happened in my 14 years across the river. Just about 2 more slides. The reality is this. Rock Island does not have a conventional set of challenges nor a conventional array of opportunities. Rock Island has extraordinary challenges and extraordinary opportunities. And I know this because I've dealt with this at a larger scale for nearly 14 years. The folks who are benefiting from suburban sprawl throughout the Quad Cities actually like what's happening in Rock Island. They like what was happening in Davenport. They won't say it in your presence, but they're fine with your population decline and they're fine with your struggling businesses. They need your decline to prop up their suburban sprawl economy. That's the economy that they're personally benefiting from. Urban declines their business model, and you need to disrupt that. So I think you're not going to disrupt that with a conventional process. I think you need to do what you're talking about doing with your new mission statement, which is you're going to inspire creativity. That's the first part of your new mission statement. So I think you need to start now with inspiring creativity about this process. Now, there are absolutely some people who don't want me to help you. And you might hear from some of those people. But I don't work for those people. I never have. I will. Last slide. I believe in the power of a real, authentic, diverse city. I don't just believe in the power. I think that they're our best invention. I think they're our best hope in this nation. I said before, I like Rock Island, or love Rock Island, because it is one of those real, unique, diverse cities. I can't guarantee you any specific future, but I can guarantee if you don't have an exceptional process, you're not going to get exceptional results. That's my story. Sticking with it. I'm happy to be here. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much. So, anybody, questions? About the council, anybody have questions? Judith?
I'll start. Hello, Craig. So, having observed that October 1st meeting, what do you see as challenges for the city in recruiting the next city manager?
Rock Island, I see an array of challenges. Rock Island is a historic, traditional city that is suffering, has suffered from global, national, regional, and state economic policy. That takes a whole lot of effort to swim against that tide. And the only way that you're going to succeed is if you all band together and you take the steps necessary to work together against that tide. So you have to recognize the challenges. You have to recognize that this position is not an easy one. And it's not something that you're going to succeed at in the first year or the first 2 years. You're going to start to see some successes, but you're going to have to dig deep and look at the long game if you're going to succeed.
Questions? Comments?
Craig, this is Alderperson Dylan Parker. Thanks for joining us here this evening and for submitting your response to the RFQ and your presentation here tonight. 2 questions, one quick and easy, the second one maybe not so much, but the first one, how much experience do you have in hiring city managers specifically? I know you've got a lot of experience hiring city staff, but city managers specifically, and I guess what can you say to assure us that you have the network or whatever it is that would facilitate getting people to apply and go through your process?
Those are excellent questions. I'll answer the first one. I've helped probably 4 cities at various stages hire their city managers. And with regard to my network, here's the truth. The other firm, again, good quality firm, they're presently searching for 100 people. If I did the math right on their website. They'll do 50 of these a year. But city managers don't care. City manager candidates don't care who the recruiter is. They care about the job, the challenges and opportunities of the job, and they care about whether or not the city council and the staff are up to the task. That's what they care about. So both the advertisement that the city of Rock Island puts in the ICMA, on the ICMA website and on the Illinois City Manager Association website, not going to look any different if I do it or they do it. It's going to look the same. And that's how people, that's how the bulk of people get to this position, to be honest.
Thank you.
Craig, this is Alderman Dave Geenan. I called some of your references, and they made mention of your deep pockets of networks. You serve on the national level of associations. I mean, so you ideally have access to candidates, correct?
I do. Well, I do. I don't want to oversell that. Again, the reality is I can't convince somebody to take on an assignment that is this challenging just because I'm a swell guy. I can be honest with them about the challenges and opportunities. There are people I know who might be interested in the position. But by and large, you're going to place ads in state, national, and regional publications, and people are going to watch your meetings and decide whether or not they want to apply and or work for you. That's what actually happens.
Good insight, thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Craig, this is Alderman Hurt. I've got a question regarding the packet that I was reading through, and I'm not sure if this was addressed prior. I arrived late, so I apologize. So there was something about a pending lawsuit, which you were a plaintiff, and it did reference to reach out to your attorney, Mr. Spohr, which I did attempt to contact, and 2 occasions, and received no return phone call. So to me, that's a little concerning when you put that out there and I don't get any response back. So would you care to clarify for anybody that may be listening what this lawsuit is regarding?
Well, sure. Yeah, and it's concerning for me to hear that he didn't return your call, so I'll have a conversation with him about that topic. Yeah, I'm the plaintiff in litigation against Lee Enterprises. And, you can walk across, drive across, bike across the river, go to Scott County Courthouse and get a copy of that. If you read it, it's fairly eye-opening. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, any specific questions on the topic if you have it.
Well, it sounds like a vague way of kind of like, I guess, pushing it under the rug, but I'm a little more disappointed in the fact that you laid this out there and I received no, just out of professional courtesy, I would have expected your attorney to at least make a return phone call. So before you put those kind of information out there, I suppose maybe they should know that they're going to get phone calls. I don't know. I just find that a little concerning that you posted this out there on this page to contact him, and very disrespectfully, I was never given a return phone call back. So that does not set a good tone for me.
Yeah, I apologize for that. It's, I'll have a conversation with him on that topic. That's not correct. I will say that the litigation is of no substantive consequence to the assignment.
It may not be, but it's still listed on here, so obviously you felt it was important enough to include that on your page here. So if you felt it was important enough to put on this piece of paper, then I would feel then there's got to be a reason why. And when I call for questions and nobody returns a phone call to me, I don't know, it just doesn't sit well with me.
Litigate,
Again, fair enough. If you have a question now, I'm happy to answer it.
Well, my question was, I was asking you, can you get into some detail of what that was without me doing tons of research and going to the courthouse?
Sure, absolutely. On August 19th, 2019, Lee Enterprises offered me $200,000 of hush money to end my litigation against them, to not correct anything, and to have me sign a confidentiality agreement for my first round of litigation. Now, they won that round of litigation in court. Then subsequent to that, on August 19th, the hush money offer, they published false and defamatory information concerning me, first in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and then in the Waterloo Courier on September 24th. The information was false and defamatory, and I initiated litigation against them.
Okay, thank you.
Wait, I should say after I asked on multiple occasions for them to correct the false and defamatory information. So that's what the case is in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you very much.
and I do believe litigation was a requirement in the response to the RFP.
Right. The RFP asked if I was involved in any litigation. So
You watch
I
these
disclosed
meetings.
that.
We do have residents that watch these meetings, so I felt it's an appropriate question, and thank you for responding.
You bet.
Yes,
I have-
another question?
Yeah, but I want to give anybody else time.
Anybody else have any questions?
I have a question, but go ahead, Judith.
Oh, okay. So Craig, your master's research was on best practices for hiring. So what are the most important best practices
Well,
for
this is
hiring?
going to sound a little self-serving, but it was done 30 years ago. You should hire a firm to help you. That was the most, that demonstrated the most efficacy for finding a city manager who fits the community. The title of the thesis was the relative utility of city manager selection procedures, finding one that fits. The second most efficacious process was to have a citizens committee. So again, long before I became a city manager, I was interested in how do cities find the right person to help their community move forward. This whole city manager gig is fairly powerful in terms of the transformation that a team can have in a community. So I was fascinated by that when I was in grad school, and have since made it my career.
So how do you identify stakeholders to participate along with the city council in this process?
That's an excellent question. I ask around, and if there's any question about whether somebody should or shouldn't be in, if there's any doubt, you add them in. The more voices that people hear, the more folks who are involved, the better off you're going to be to get buy-in to a candidate that can tie people together and move the city organization and the community forward. So again, I do a very public process, and there are people who will tell you that that's not good. That people in my line of work don't want to, they don't want people to know that they're looking for a job. And again, the truth of it is, the people who are worried about people knowing that they're looking probably should be worried. The people who aren't worried and are just, exploring, and are, beloved back home, they got no real substantive issue with doing a public presentation. Or at least it shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Craig, does your process include, or perhaps how much does your process include helping us refine what we want in a city manager? For example, just saying we want a city manager that can help us with economic development is pretty broad. It's like, well, what do you mean by economic development, and what is it? Rock Island's vision and future for economic development is going to be different than Davenport's vision for economic development, right? So can you speak to your process and how do you really refine us saying what we want and getting that?
Yeah, I'll have conversations with every city council member and every senior staff member before I first take a crack at that. You'll see at least 2 different drafts, and we'll have discussion because the words matter when you're trying to find the right candidate. I will say that if you take a look at a conventional firm, and I'm not casting aspersions on anyone, if you take a look at a conventional firm and you look at their candidate profiles, they tend to be 90% the same. And again, my observation, first from California, now I'm a little bit closer, and I'm down in the Quad Cities every weekend. My observation is Rock Island can't have a standard candidate. You have a very particular set of challenges and opportunities, and you're going to have to find somebody that is, operating outside the box, because the box that you're in ain't great.
Especially with key staff coming that this new city manager will hire.
Well, right, and again, if the first words in your new mission statement is to inspire creativity, you better start that with your city manager, and your city manager better follow up with that with your key department heads. That's the only way you're going to succeed.
So, I noticed that in the GovHR proposal, you said their profiles tend to be the same. They take their information from their cover letter, resume, whatever they submit, and put it in a standard format. Do you do that, or do you let council see the original packet that's submitted?
I'm sorry, the original packet.
By candidates, their cover letter, their resume.
The short answer is you can see anything you want to see. I'm an open book, folks. So you can see everything they submit. I don't have any issues with that at all. And you can ask any question, and what will happen is I will ask the city council to form, a small committee that can assist with, some screening. But in the end, you get to see everyone.
Did you want to take the opportunity to explain the creative idea you have in terms of an intern for us and an intern for another town?
Well, yeah, I guess I didn't explain it very well in my packet, because it's not really an intern. I suppose it could be. I am here's a brief biographical note. I'm the youngest of 7 children in my extended family, the first one in my family to ever go to college. I went to college, I had $83 in my pocket when I went to Western Illinois University. It's made all the difference. So I'm in this line of work to repay a debt of social capital I have. I was an orphan. I lived at the time in a wheelchair, at the time in an orphanage when I was a kid. And, you don't have to be the smartest child in the world to figure out that, people that you don't know are feeding you and housing you. And I owe a debt to that society that allowed me to succeed. So my career, everywhere I practice, has been about how do we make the community better, particularly in terms of helping the next generation succeed. Okay, so that's just like a bottom line. So as I was going over, again, I was asked to submit a proposal, and I'm not doing this because, it's my business or my hobby. I was like, I don't want to, when I first offered to do it for free, but then I was saying, I was asked to make it into a proposal, so I said, I better put a number in there so it looks like it's, legitimate. But I felt bad about putting a number in there, so I just said, well, we'll just make them pay $2,500 to send for a scholarship for some first-generation student in Rock Island and some first-generation student in Poinnette, because I'm working for Poinnette now, and I might as well help people here. So that's all it is. You can have my services, help 2 kids, pay about half what you would pay a conventional firm. I thought it was kind of neat.
Yeah, I apologize, it's scholarship, not internship, scholarship.
Right. You could make it an internship, I suppose.
That would be interesting.
By the way, interns rule. Just get more interns. Yeah, because they're always asking questions. Why are we doing it like this? Interns are great.
Another question, Judith?
Yes. So, Craig, how would you keep council informed of the progress of the search?
I'd give you updates at least every other week on status. Written updates.
I have one more.
Okay.
So how would you ensure that all of council's viewpoints and feedback are considered and included?
Well, I'll answer that in 2 ways, or 3 ways. First, this is my line of work. I've been doing it for 30-odd years, and I have a capacity for getting to greatest common multiple results rather than least common denominator results. Secondly, again, I have asked that there be some smaller working group, so you don't have to convene a meeting every time we need to talk, and that meeting group is reflective of the breadth of perspectives on the council, and that's really up to you. I can't tell you who should be on that committee. And then finally, in the end, the reality is you're all elected officials and you get to make the call. So it's not me making the call at all. It's me assisting, but you're the ones who make the call. You're the ones who are going to be responsible for the success of the city, both as an organization and as a community.
I have one more.
Always one more. Go ahead, that's fine. Okay.
Oh, Mark, you go first.
I have some concern because dealing with a firm, a larger firm, there is more depth, although I understand that you do have quite a network. My concern is trying to avoid the good old boy network. I've seen it in the past, and I'm not saying that would happen, but it's my understanding that you will just present candidates, and then council will have to vet whether or not that is the appropriate candidate. Is that my correct understanding?
No, not really. Number one, on the good old boy thing, I'll say this: I've never hired somebody that I've worked with previously. That doesn't add any value to anyone. So I'm not the good old boy network. The vetting issue is I will review candidates and I will put them in tiers, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And I'll suggest the working group and or ultimately the city council in closed session, these are the candidates that I recommend move forward. And you can say, well, no, what about this person over here? I think that person should get a chance. And I'm not the person who excludes anyone. you get to make the call on who you ultimately interview. I will make suggestions and recommendations, but most importantly, I'll deliver a process that is an obstacle course rather than a walking path. That's the difference. That's a substantial difference in approach. Clearly, the other group has greater resources than I do. I would look like a fool if I were to suggest otherwise. I've said they're a good firm and they'll do good work.
Well, I don't mean to, and I hope I didn't insult you by that comment, because that wasn't my intent. But, you know, clearly if you're going to recommend somebody that you have had a professional relationship with, either through your associations or something, that there would be full disclosure about that for us. And I do know this person, and, you know, this is how I know him, and this is why I'm recommending him, because he is what you want. And here is
Right.
why he is what you want.
Right. And I would absolutely do that because that's the honest thing to do.
Thank you.
Judith?
So, Craig, so what kind of background screening would you conduct on applicants?
Well, I would do reference checks. What I suggested in my proposal is that the criminal history checks, or the credit checks and all that should be done. I think that should be done by your police department rather than me. I think you should get multiple perspectives on that from people who have the best investigatory processes. Is how I would do that. And is how I proposed to do that in my proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Craig, anything else?
No, I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me to participate this evening. I've enjoyed it. And again, I apologize for my turning your call. I want to just, suggest that you look for ways in which the council can come together on this task, because that's very important to prospective candidates, no matter who is helping you. I want to thank you again for being a diverse, authentic, real city. I'm a big fan of Rock Island. I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is GovHR on there?
They're not on yet.
They're not on yet?
Well, they're at 5:45.
Okay. Didn't know if they'd log in early or something. We'll take a few minutes here, just 5:45 is the next presentation.
That's transforming performance measurement by Dylan.
Exactly what it sounds.
Is this the new one you're on?
Yep.
What was the one on management you had? Is this the one that you,
Radical
customer
management.
service?
It's a different one.
Okay. There was an article in The Economist about the Gates Foundation and the difference of philosophies of data-driven measurements or
Sounds like something's happening.
It's been a good book.
Three people?
I heard from World Relief that we'll receive our first Afghan refugee through Operation Afghan Welcome in the next week or so. We have 2 in the pipeline, 150 coming.
Good evening.
Can they not hear us yet?
We can start. GovHR, is everybody in that's going to be joining us?
I think we are. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you.
Group ready to get started? A little early, but if everybody's there. All right, go ahead and start with your presentation.
Excellent, thank you very much. We very much appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening to talk with you about a very important process you're soon to embark upon. Just a couple of introductory comments. We do have a brief slide presentation that we'd like to walk through, but just by way of an introduction, my name is Mark Peterson. I will be the primary contact if we are selected for this engagement, but there are also other team members that will be involved, and I have 2 of them with me this evening on the call, and they will introduce themselves in just a couple of minutes. Just by way of my background, I'm a former city manager. I joined GovHR in 2018 following my retirement as the city manager in Normal, Illinois. I was there for 20 years as the city manager and 10 years as the assistant city manager. So I've spent a good portion of my career in Illinois, but I also spent some time in Iowa and Missouri as well. I joined GovHR again in 2018 and primarily do executive recruitment. My specialty is city managers. I work primarily in Illinois and the surrounding states. But I do some other work for municipalities and counties as well. But again, recruitment is probably my primary activity, and I enjoy that. I appreciate the opportunity to be considered for this engagement. I'd like to talk a little bit about our firm, and as opposed to walk you through our 40-plus page proposal, which I know you've already reviewed that in detail and will be asking us questions later. I thought we'd start by just sort of sharing with you why we think that GovHR USA is the right choice for Rock Island and the right fit for this particular engagement. We are an Illinois-based company founded in 2009 by Heidi Voorhees and Joellen Catamartori. Heidi is known throughout the country. She is probably the premier public sector executive recruiter. It's been a real opportunity for me to work with her and to learn from her. As I said, it's an Illinois-based company, even though we have a national footprint. Illinois and the Midwest is our bread and butter, and Rock Island is in our backyard. So we feel very comfortable here, given our experience in Illinois and the Midwest. It is a team. We work as a team. We've already assembled a team of professionals to work on this engagement if we are so fortunate to be selected. And as I said, 2 of our team members are here with me, so I'm going to ask them to briefly introduce themselves. First one is Jim Arndt. Jim, do you want to jump in and introduce yourself, please?
I sure will, Mark. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. My name is Jim Arndt. I have 17 years city manager's experience. Last stint was down in Paducah, Kentucky. Prior to that, I was in Effingham, Illinois. Prior to that, I was in St. Clair, Missouri. And before that, Union City, Ohio. So again, I bring a good background in the Midwest, a little bit of the South as well.
Thank you, Jim. Lori Peterson, and no relation. Her name's spelled with a D, not a T. So. Lori?
Hi, everyone. I'm Lori Peterson. Thank you so much for having us tonight. I'm really excited to share our firm with you. I have been with the firm since day one, 2009. Heidi Voorhees brought me along on this journey. I've been in recruiting and staffing in the public sector for 14 years. And I'm very passionate about our company. So if there's any questions you have, I'm sure I will be happy to answer them. I also, I'm going to go ahead, Mark, and introduce Michelle Morosky. that you see on your screen. She's our recruitment coordinator. Every recruitment we do is assigned a recruitment coordinator who does all of the behind the scenes items. They run all the technology with our applicant, bringing them in, communicating with them throughout the process to make sure they know what phase we're in. They do all the background screenings, prepare all the documents, and just pretty much make sure all the candidates are taken care of throughout the process. Diane Donor is our reference specialist, and she is in charge of making all of the reference calls. We make 2 reference calls on a first group of candidates, and then 2 more when they move to interview. So she'll be the one responsible for making those calls and contacting the candidates' references.
Excellent. Thank you, Lori. I should share with you that I'm located right now in the Bloomington Normal area, and we are under a tornado warning. It is a terrific storm, so if my connection's a little choppy, that may be the reason. So, but Lori, you want to go ahead and handle this next slide?
Sure. So I just want to talk briefly about our network. We obviously have been since 2009. We now have 35 consultants located across the country, and we've done recruitments in 41 states. We work very hard, and I have worked very hard to grow our network, to make sure we have connections, to use our technology, to make sure we have social media connections. We are nationwide. Midwest is obviously where we do most of our business. This year it's kind of really exploded, and we have, we've really had a great year with being able to fill positions all over the country and make contacts around the nation. We're very well known in the industry with clients and candidates. We get feedback from many candidates saying that we have a process that's really above and beyond. We really get to know them before we present them to you to move forward. We're very active in ICMA, NFBPA, the Local Government Hispanic Network, and all of the local government associations. And for our outreach, during our recruitment, we really pride ourselves on our outreach. We get 11,000 visits to our website each month. We have a career center on our website that posts all of our jobs, and we also, it also runs other clients' jobs that we allow to post on there. So we get even more traffic from people interested in those positions that can view all our positions in one place. We have 7,000 job seekers that receive our weekly job announcement emails every Tuesday at 3 o'clock, and they are very helpful in getting the word out about your position. We have 9,142 city management contacts in our email database that we can sort by population, by region. We can go down to 200-mile radius of your organization and reach out to them via email. We also have their phone numbers, and do some personal outreach that way. We also have a LinkedIn search engine, which allows us to reach out to those passive job seekers. We can actually put in qualifications as close as like they must have city in their organization, they must have city manager as their title, and it will bring us all their information and their phone numbers and emails, and avoid all the LinkedIn in-mail and all that kind of networking you do. We can reach directly out to them to really grasp those passive job seekers that are out there. Social media. I pride ourselves on technology. I'm actually one of the reasons we are at the technology point. I love technology. We worked very hard to grow our social media, to make sure we've got the right software to communicate with everybody. There's amazing resources, technology out there for recruiting now, and I feel like we are at the cutting edge of making sure we utilize all those sources. We have 20,000 followers on LinkedIn between our presidents, the 2 owners, and the vice presidents. So we make sure we post your ad across all of their profiles. And then we will work on advertising sources with you. We're very unique when we work on your ad. We want to make sure that advertisement fits you. We want to make sure that we've researched the salary, that the salary and the year's experience are in line with the area. We really work hard at making sure that the ad is going to draw in the people that we want to draw in. And we work very hard in where we're placing those ads. We have years of experience of, does ILCMA bring us any qualified candidates? Does, govtjobs.com bring us any qualified candidates? So we've researched SGR Jobs, all of these companies that we can post with to make sure we're getting the best bang for your buck. And we really bring you great advertising recommendations, and we would work with you on where to post the ad and move forward from there.
Thank you, Lori. You know, I feel compelled to add, there's lots of important reasons to engage a search firm in a process like this to replace a city manager, but I don't think there's anything more important than the network. And that's one thing that I obviously I'm biased. I don't think there are probably any other recruiting firms in the country that can match GovHR's network. Not only do the individual recruiters, myself and Jim, we have our own personal networks, but we have 35 other recruiters throughout the country that have networks. And then, of course, GovHR, the company itself, has a network. And we'll talk a little later about why that's so important to have the network. We'll give you more reasons. But I do want to also touch on the fact that we perform a lot of due diligence. First of all, when we are going through the screening process, we sit down, it will be Jim and I, and we will interview all of what I would call the top tier candidates. And for a community like Rock Island, it would probably be 15 to 20 candidates that we feel are the best qualified. We review those through a video link, or interview those candidates through a video link, and we spend an hour even more with them. And why is that important? Number one, we're trying to get to know them. Some of the candidates we're familiar with, but many we're not. We want to get to know them. We want to see their body language. We want to watch their communication style. How do they handle difficult questions? All of that's part of our due diligence. Before we even sit down and present candidates to you, we're getting to know them. And we're also delving into questions regarding their background that may have raised a red flag or two, so we have that information. We do an extensive social media review, a Google Internet check. We do it at the preliminary stage, and then once you select a finalist, we do a much deeper dive into internet and social media. It's amazing what you can uncover about an individual based upon their social media activity. Our goal is no surprises. At the end of the day, if there's something out there that's a red flag, we want to make sure you're aware of it. And we not only do it ourselves internally, but we hire third parties with specific expertise in these kinds of internet searches and social media checks and reference checks. We do a variety of other background checks, including criminal and financial, and we verify employment to make sure that the resume that we received is accurate. We verify educational achievements. All of that is part of our process, and all of that is covered through our fee. We check news media, obviously reports, and again, we check references, and not always just the references they give us. Sometimes we check other employers. I do a lot of phone calling. I have an extensive network, so I call other city managers that may be familiar with the candidate that can share some light on what they know of the candidate. Again, I think our due diligence is second to none, and that's one of the reasons why I think GovHR is the right fit for Rock Island. And next slide, Lori. So a couple of things that are our hallmarks, our guarantee. Number one, we will be with you till the end. If the search takes 12 weeks or if it takes 37 weeks, we will be with you the entire time. If we go out and we just don't find candidates the first time around that you feel comfortable with, and we need to go back out again, we will do that at no additional charge. So we are with you till you find the candidate that you feel is right for your community. Now, it's not an exact science, and we're not perfect. I think we're pretty good, and we've got a good track record, and we'll talk about that, but we're not perfect. Sometimes we don't deliver the right candidate, or they don't last for a variety of reasons. Sometimes the candidate themselves doesn't find the job to their liking. Sometimes there are family issues that cause them to leave. We provide a one-year guarantee. So if the selected candidate leaves the position within a year for any reason, if they leave on their own voluntarily, if they're determined not to be the right fit for whatever reason, we then will provide a follow-up search for free, no consultant fee. You do have to pay advertising costs and reimbursable expenses, but that's a relatively small part of the overall package. We eat the rest of that cost, and that's, again, part of what we do, and we stand behind our work. Now, let's talk about our track record. We've done over 900 recruitments since the firm was formed back in 2009. I'm very proud to say that only 3% of those recruitments have activated the guarantee. It does happen, and that's about 30. So as I said, we're not perfect, but we're pretty doggone close. That's a pretty good batting average, I would say, and I think it's due to our process, our team, and the way we have exploited the network. So something we're very proud of, and we bring that record of success. We would bring that record of success to Rock Island if you select us for this engagement. So Jim's this is the last substantive slide before we get into questions, but an important one. And Jim, do you want to handle this, please?
I sure will, Mark. I applaud you, Mr. Mayor and City Council, for your due diligence in selecting a firm. And we just kind of put a slide together to kind of show some things that we hope that you would consider. Number one, it's very important to consider who's on the team. You know, who are you going to be working with? What value, what skill sets, what experience do they bring to the table? Do they have an extensive network? We've talked about that tonight in depth. GovHR has a very expansive network that's just second to none. What is their track record of success? Mark just talked about that a little bit as well. 900 searches with 3% of the need to go back in and utilize that guarantee. Speaking of guarantees, do they stand behind their work? As Mark just talked about, yes, we do. And do they know our community and our region? As you heard from our past experiences in GovHR USA, it's an Illinois-based company. We're right here in your backyard, and this is our bread and butter.
Thank you, Jim. And with that, Mayor and members of the council, we stand ready to respond to your questions.
This is Alderman Hurd. I think I'll start off here. So you made a comment early on. The statement was, once the council has come up that picks some candidates, that you would dig deeper. Why wouldn't that be? Why wouldn't your digging deeper be done by you previous to us getting these candidates? Why are we waiting until then?
Well, it's a matter of resources. We typically do an initial background work with a larger group that may be as large as 20, sometimes even more. And through that, we can uncover most issues that could be of concern. However, when you get down to that final group, that's the point where we engage other companies. We hire them to perform an even more detailed background check. If we were to do that for the larger group, it would just simply be more expensive. We're trying to be efficient with your dollars. Again, we can probably uncover 80% of the issues with our initial background, but we want to make sure with that final group that you know exactly who you're interviewing. And as I said, we don't want there to be any surprises at the end of the process.
Okay. Following up to that, what means do you use to, we'll call it, dig deeper? What other routes or what other things are you looking for as you're getting more involved in learning about that candidate?
Yes, well, we do. We hire a firm that when we're digging deeper, we're hiring a firm that goes out and checks and verifies all of their educational achievements. So if somebody says they've got a master's degree from the University of Northern Illinois, we actually go out and go to the university and confirm that they indeed did get that degree, and it is what they say that it is. If they say that they were employed by the city of Tucumcari, New Mexico, as an assistant city manager, we go out, we actually contact Tucumcari and verify their employment, the dates of employment. We generally find that candidates are honest on their resumes, but once in a while, you'll find somebody stretches the truth a little bit. That's a problem, and we want to know that, and we want you to know that if we discover it. We also use a third-party firm to do a very deep social media and internet check. This is not just a Google search. This is a much deeper check, and these are firms that are hired by a variety of companies to do background checks. They have expertise, they know where to look and how to look, and they can sometimes uncover things that we don't find in our initial review. Again, I think generally speaking, we catch most of it, but we want to make absolutely sure, particularly with the final group of candidates, that you know what you got and you don't make a hiring decision without fully understanding everything in that particular person's background. I'll defer to see if Lori or Jim have anything to add to that.
Well, just to kind of clarify a few things, when we first are presenting the group to you, we're doing more of the internet, Google, social media. We're looking for those things that either accolades or embarrassment or things that we need to mention and talk to the candidate about. When we get to the interview stage, we're digging even deeper. We're going to the top 200 search results of that person, and it's not just that person's name, it's that person and their job title, that person and their occupation and their location of where they work and where they live. And it's very intense process of our internet and news media searching. We also use a company to run all of the background screening versus some clients say, well, we'll just use our police department. That's fine, but most time they ask us to run in addition to them because police departments are good for the criminal and the local and statewide criminal. We're running Social Security traces, Social Security verifications, bankruptcies, liens, judgments, motor vehicle, education verifications, civil searches, like all of these additional items that most police departments would rather have someone else who specializes in this do. So most of our clients, I would say a good 95% of them have us just run the entire package, which includes all of the national criminal, county criminal, statewide. It's got all your sex offender registries, your most wanted lists, terrorist databases, all of those items packaged into one. It's very extensive process that we do. We can even do an optional drug screen, especially if the candidate is out of the area. We have labs in any part of the nation that they can go to get a drug screen. I think that's about it.
Thank you. One more question for me. So you're talking about top-tier qualifications. What, in your opinion, would be considered top-tier qualifiers for this position, in your opinion?
Yeah, well, first of all, one of the first things we will do if we were selected, we would sit down with all of you to talk about what you're looking for. What kind of experience do you want? What specific skill sets would you like to see in the position? There are some communities that are really lean towards economic development. There are others that says, well, that's fine and that's great, but we really want somebody who's got a strong finance background or maybe more of an engineering infrastructure background. What kind of personality are you looking for? Are there any personal attributes that you want from your new city manager? Do you want somebody who's really strong in social media and communications? Do you want somebody who is particularly adept at collaboration? Those kinds of things. And these are all important things to have, but we want to find out what is most important. And then obviously there's baseline. We want somebody with what kind of a degree? Do you want a master's degree? Oftentimes communities want somebody with a master's degree and they want somebody with at least, let's say, 10 years of managerial experience. Some council says we want somebody who's been a city manager already, is tried and tested. These are all things that we sit down and talk with you about. And Jim and I, who are the boots on the ground, will provide you with sort of our ideas and our thoughts because we are former city managers. But at the end of the day, these are your choices. Based upon what you tell us, that's how we evaluate the candidate pool. And so as we go, once the candidate pool, once it closes, we sit down and do a very deep dive into each of the applicants and try to find out which of the applicants best match what you're looking for. Do they meet the minimum qualifications? Do they have some of the skill set experiences that you're looking for? Now, it may be that a candidate doesn't check every box. That they still might be a very good candidate, even though they check some of them. But that's really what we're looking for. So it's hard to say right now what we think is the right candidate for Rock Island. We can make that determination once we talk with all of you and find out what you're looking for.
Thank you very much. Sorry, one last question, then I'm done. What efforts are made by your company? Rock Island's a very diverse community. What efforts are made by your company to reach out to, I guess, to get diverse candidates?
Well, as a company, we are very much committed to diversity. It's a part of our company's mission. We work closely with some national networks, the National Forum for Black Public Administrators. We have actually a strategic alliance with that organization. We advertise with them. We use them to try to promote positions that we're recruiting for, particularly among the African American community. We're also, as I think Lori mentioned earlier, we also work very closely with the National Hispanic Network. And again, that has been a very valuable relationship for us. We also try to look at local, if there's any local organizations that can be of help in promoting the position. Not that there's necessarily a lot of candidates locally that might fit the profile of what you're looking for, but there are some. So we usually seek local organizations to help to promote the position. Again, our goal is to try to bring to you a diverse applicant pool, or a racially diverse and gender diverse applicant pool. We will go to great lengths to do that. And a lot of that is where we advertise the position. And we will try to advertise in those publications that tend to attract minority people, so they at least are aware of the position. We also do a lot of just calling. It's just not enough to put an ad in a trade publication. It's not enough to put a posting on social media. We spend a lot of time on the phone calling people that we may know of that could be prospective candidates. Other people in our network, we ask, who do you know? Who might we call? Who's out there that would be a good fit? I find it's surprisingly the number of really good candidates that I'm able to attract to a position that aren't even looking. But they get a call from me, I make the pitch, I share information about the community and why I think they'd be a good fit. And oftentimes they say, well, oh, yeah, maybe that does sound interesting. I'll consider it, and they follow through with a application. So it's a lot of personal outreach as well as partnering with other agencies that can help us create that kind of a diversity in our applicant pool.
Okay, thank you very much, and I promise I'm done with my question.
So what do you see as challenges to recruit for Rock Island's next city manager? What do you know about the city?
Well, I know a fair amount about it. I've been in Rock Island many times, and as a downstate manager, I've known all of your managers going back to John Phillips. I know Randy, and I knew Thomas, and John Phillips is a good friend of mine, and I've worked with him closely over the years. I've been in your city hall. I've been in your community a number of times. I've eaten at some of your wonderful restaurants. I've even been in the casino riverboat a time or two. But let me talk in general terms, first of all, and I will say it is a challenging time to hire city managers, and frankly, we could probably say that about many occupations these days. But I mentioned earlier the importance of the network, and I'll expound upon that a little bit. Right now, we are finding, and this is throughout the country, the talent pool is probably as limited as it's been in a long time for city managers. And I think my theory is there's three reasons for that. First of all, COVID-19 has clearly had an impact. A lot of people that would ordinarily be looking to make a move are choosing to sit tight. Particularly those with young children are just not comfortable moving given the continued health issues and uncertainty associated with COVID. We were hoping by now that would relax a little bit, but we're not seeing that yet, and I think it probably is attributable to what's going on with the virus. The other consideration is we're also seeing, those of us who are in the profession, we're seeing a lot of difficult political situations at the local level. I think some of the things that are happening, some of the polarization and acrimony that we're seeing at the federal and state level has begun to trickle down to the local level. Good candidates are very, very careful about not getting into a situation that is highly political, and they may find themselves short tenured. And in this day and age with social media, most cities videotape and broadcast their council meetings. Good candidates do a lot of homework before they even submit an application. And so if they see red flags, they typically don't apply, particularly if they're in a pretty safe jurisdiction. I don't see that here, but I'm just saying that's a reality throughout the country. And the final thing that I will say that I think is limiting the applicant pool these days is the fact that fewer younger people are choosing public service as a career. The graduate schools are not full. That pipeline of new people entering the profession is fairly shallow. So when gray-haired guys like me and like Randy choose to retire, we don't see the stream of young people coming into the profession that ultimately will replace us old-timers. And there are a lot of managers that are of Randy's age that are retiring. It's all over the country. So all the more important to have a firm like GovHR that can go out and find applicants. As I said, it's not enough to post an ad in a trade publication. We have to beat the bushes. We have to sell the community. We have to sell the position. This is a great opportunity, and hopefully encourage good candidates to apply. I would suspect that the actual quantity of the applicant pool that we end up with will be less than what we might have seen 10 years ago. But the key is quality. Quantity is nice, but we want quality, and that's our goal, is finding good candidates. So let's talk specifically about Rock Island. Certainly, I'm going to say some very positive things right now. The fact that you have an existing administrator, existing city manager who is retiring, the position is not a revolving door. And that's one of the challenges we face with some communities where they're changing managers every 1 to 2 to 3 years. That is clearly not the case in Rock Island. You have stability, and that is a very important consideration, and that will be something that we will use as we market the position. I think also, there's a lot of, the quality of life in Rock Island, from my perspective as a fellow downstate Illinois person, is very, very good. The fact that you're part of a large metropolitan region with lots of amenities to offer is a very positive thing. And you've got good transportation access. Economic development could always be better, but it seems to be on the upswing. And you've got a wonderful airport in the region. Some of the concerns I would say is I know there's some financial challenges, and believe me, you're not alone. Many cities across the country are facing financial challenges, and that's something that I know you've had to grapple with. I don't think they're insurmountable, and I don't think they will cause significant problems, but it is something that we will have to address as we learn more about the city and get more specifics about those challenges. There's always infrastructure needs, and Rock Island is not unlike many communities that have infrastructure challenges, and that also relates to some of the financial resource limitations. So those are things we'll have to address, but I don't see anything that is specific to Rock Island that is really problematic and insurmountable. There are things that we can deal with. We will, it's our job to put the best spin on the community that we can, yet by the same time being honest and candid to the candidates. We don't want to attract somebody by providing misleading information, but we also want to put our best spin on it. And that's what we do, not only through our direct solicitations, but through our job announcement as well as through the recruitment brochure that we develop, and then we'll distribute that far and wide to try to market the community and the position to prospective candidates.
So how would you conduct a targeted, more laser-focused search rather than a blanket approach to thousands who may not even be qualified in the least? And let me just say, the reason why I'm asking this question is I used to work in city government. I was recruited regularly for jobs that I wasn't qualified for, would never even consider, but yet there's this blanket approach versus something more targeted.
Yeah. I have done targeted searches, and there is a time and place for those. The only downside to a targeted search is you don't know, there may be candidates out there who are very good and very interested that you miss. We tend to open it up. We try to get as many candidates as possible, knowing that there's a large number. It's not unusual that 50% of the applicants are basically unqualified. They don't even come close to meeting the minimum qualifications that you all will establish as part of the process. That's okay. But what our job is to weed those out and try to focus on those candidates that we think are good fits, are qualified. And there may be some candidates, some people that apply that we're unfamiliar with, but once we learn more about them, we make a determination that, wow, they're a great candidate. Thankfully, they applied, even though we didn't reach out to them and we didn't know them, but they applied and we think they're a good fit. You sometimes find candidates, particularly in this situation, that have family connections in the Quad Cities or in Illinois and are just waiting for an opportunity for a job to pop up where they can get back closer to family. Those are sometimes people we're not familiar with, but they're very good candidates. So again, I would say the broader search that we're proposing is more likely to capture those good candidates that we may not be aware of that would not rise to the surface if we did a targeted search.
Questions?
I have one more.
Sure.
So you package candidate info into profiles. Would the city council have access to the candidate's original cover letter and resume?
Absolutely. We provide that. We provide the cover letter, resume, references, as well as the information that we put together to highlight certain aspects of their background. But you receive everything that we receive.
Questions? I guess I have one is testing. I didn't see in there, do you do any kind of profile testing, leadership testing, and written test?
Sure. I can talk about both of those. Let's talk about the written test first. We ordinarily don't do written tests, and I'll tell you why. I'm not necessarily a big fan. You never know who does the writing. Usually those are sent out and you ask them to submit a 1 or 2 or 3 page written response to an issue or a question. And I find it hard to rely on that because I don't know who wrote it. I don't know who edited it. But if that's something that you would like to do, we could certainly do that with no additional cost. Personally, I don't know that it's that helpful. But we're happy to do that if that's something you'd like us to do. With regard to testing, personality testing, leadership testing, that is something that we typically do as an add-on service, and we work with a variety of testing systems. When the time comes, we can share with you a variety of alternatives. They're not terribly expensive. If that's something that you're very much interested in, we would be happy to do that with the final group if that's something that you want, and we wouldn't charge you. It's really a fairly small fee anyway, and we would add that if that's something that you would find valuable. And I will tell you, I have had clients that have done that, city councils that do find that to be helpful. So I would encourage it.
Is there any other questions, comments? Anybody? Any last comments from GovHR?
I don't think so. We appreciate the opportunity. I'm a big fan of Rock Island. I've known it for a long time, and in fact, I hired two in my past you could say maybe I stole two staff members years ago from Rock Island. So it's always been an organization that I valued, and I think it has great culture, and it's just a wonderfully diverse and rich community. So I would be delighted to work with you and try to find that the next city manager. But if there are other questions that come up, feel free to reach out to any of us. I think you have my contact information. Be happy to respond to any questions that you might have. And we, once again, appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Good evening.
All right, that concludes our presentations. We do have a little celebratory deal out here. If we want to adjourn and come back at 6:45, start the council meeting. Thank you.